Welcome to the Parsha Themes share for Parsha Ki Teitzei this week, and it is for the Refuah Shalema of Moshe Shimon ben Leah Esther Chaya Halevi. Now we start with the opening theme, which is battling our evil inclination. The pasuk says, Ki Teitzei le'milchama, when you go out to war against your enemies. While this clearly refers to military conduct, the sages also saw it as a metaphor for the deepest, most personal conflict we each face on a daily basis. Not a physical war, but a spiritual battle with ourselves, with our yetzer hara, our inner negative drive. One of the fiercest enemies we will ever face is not a nation or an individual, but our own impulses that try to lead us astray. We must strengthen ourselves with Torah and mitzvahs in order to win this most important of wars against a vicious and determined enemy that seeks not our physical but our spiritual demise. Now, eishes toar, the Torah says, the Torah directs us in our Parsha, when you go out to battle and see the eishes toar, the beautiful woman captive, then you should begin a process that effectively delays you from acting on your spontaneous desires. In other words, when you encounter sin and you desire it, wait, do not give in to momentary passions. Bring her into your house, and she shall shave her head and change out of her attractive garments. We should contemplate that sin is nothing more than a fleeting image of satisfaction and ultimately leads to disappointment, frustration, and a distancing from God. Then we are in a greater position to utilize our bechira, our free choice, well, in choosing life. Now, Ben Sera umoreh, the wayward and rebellious son. The Ben Sera umoreh refers to a child who disobeys his parents, to the point where they bring him to the local beis din, the court, and the Torah commands that on his second appearance the child is to be put to death. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says about this law, it has never happened and will never happen. It is subject to so many specific conditions that not only is it unlikely that a child will meet all the criteria, but it is literally impossible. The boy must be a particular age, from 13 to 13 and 3 months years old, and the parents must be similar to each other in several ways, and the boy must have stolen his parents' money to indulge in a particular quantity of meat and wine. The Gemara comments that the Torah, of course, knew that this halacha will never become practically implemented, but it nevertheless presented it for the purpose of learning about it and receiving reward for that learning. This is true also of another halacha which has never been and will never be practically applicable, the Ir Hanidachas, a city whose inhabitants all worship idols and must therefore all be killed. Again, the Torah introduced and discussed these laws even though such circumstances will never actually arise, so that we can earn reward through the study of the relevant halachas, the relevant laws. These mitzvahs are included in the Torah despite their having no practical application, because they are part of Hashem's message to us. Torah is not simply an instruction manual, it is the means by which we study Hashem's plan for the world and thereby connect to Him. Through Torah study we attain das Torah, a Torah mind. It allows us to mold and shape our minds, training our eyes to see the world and to see life through the prism of the Torah. By learning Torah, we accustom ourselves to view everything from the Torah's perspective, in its language and in light of its values and principles. Even when we learn halachas which are not practically applicable, this study has a profound effect on our minds and our vision. It anchors us so we remain steadily devoted to Torah despite the fierce cultural and ideological winds that can otherwise pull us away. The subject of Ben Sera umoreh, for example, instills within us a sensitivity to the danger and destructiveness of gluttony and overindulgence. It trains us to value moderation in our pursuit of physical enjoyment, to prioritize spiritual fulfillment over bodily pleasure, and to exercise self-control and self-discipline. This idea is expressed in the Gemara in Yevamos as Kadesh atzmecha b'mutar lach. Sanctify yourself in what is permitted to you, according to the Ramban. We are to devote significant amounts of time to Torah learning, not only for practical halachic guidance, but also to mold our minds, our personalities, and our vision to become true Torah Jews. Now, a slippery slope or an upward trajectory. So if you marry a captive woman, then you will have a rebellious son, and then other events come along as well. The Parsha begins with the option of marrying a non-Jewish woman captured in battle, and the consequences of this action become apparent very quickly. Strife in their marriage, a child who rebels, and the tragic end to the life of this child are direct results of the path chosen by the soldier who could not control his desires. In contrast to this downward trajectory, the Torah portrays the upward trajectory of a life full of mitzvahs. Rashi comments on the natural progression from one mitzvah to another. Fulfillment of a relatively simple mitzvah to perform, such as shiluach haken, sending away the mother bird before taking her eggs, sets into motion a series of mitzvahs. One then merits to build a new house, thereby having the opportunity to construct a marker, a fence around the roof to protect everyone from falling, which is also a mitzvah. Next, one plants a vineyard and a field, which necessitate more mitzvahs. Following these are even more opportunities for mitzvahs, such as tzitzis, the fringes, for the beautiful garments one merits to wear. The sages tell us mitzvah goreres mitzvah, one mitzvah leads to another, and on the other hand, avera goreres avera, one sin leads to another. Neither the mitzvah nor the avera that precipitates the different chains of events are categorized as exceptionally strict commandments. The avera of taking the captive woman is not even actually an avera in the classic sense, since technically the action taken is permissible, and yet we learn that even a permissible action that is not in the spirit of holiness can potentially have disastrous consequences. Similarly, the mitzvah of shiluach haken is categorized as a light mitzvah. One would not have expected such a mitzvah to be a catalyst for an entire series of mitzvahs to follow. The sages instruct us to be careful with even the light mitzvahs, as we do not know the reward of any given mitzvah. They continue to say that even such mitzvahs can result in other mitzvahs, as part of the reward for any mitzvah is that it leads one down the path to perform others. Now, the Torah introduces the mitzvah of a Shabbos Aveda, returning lost objects. If one sees something which a person has lost, he must take it home and make an effort to find its owner and return it to him. In just 3 verses, the word achicha, your brother, appears 5 times. The Torah found it necessary to emphasize in this context the kinship that we are to feel toward our fellow Jew. Similarly, the Torah later in this parsha reiterates the prohibition of rebellious, charging interest on loans. There too, the Torah uses the word achicha, emphasizing that our fellow Jew must be seen as our brother. We can understand that these 2 mitzvahs are financial obligations which are far from intuitive. In the case of a Shabbos Aveda, returning lost objects, we might have assumed that if Providence arranged that an object would be misplaced and discovered by someone else, then the finder is entitled to keep it. He might reasonably figure that Hashem brought him to that place at that time where his fellow's object happened to be, so that he could take it. As for the prohibition of interest, there is seemingly no difference between leasing a house or a car and leasing money. Just as it is perfectly legitimate and morally acceptable to charge money for the use of one's property, it should be acceptable to charge money for the use of one's money. Also, the lender is losing the opportunity to invest his own funds, and it is understandable if he were to receive compensation for this loss. Nevertheless, the Torah strictly forbids any form of interest. This is because we are to treat our fellow man, Jewish of course, with love and compassion, and as a brother, so we must forego our otherwise legitimate right to collect interest. For this reason, the Torah repeatedly emphasizes the word achicha in these two contexts, because when it comes to family, basic morality and ethics do not suffice. If we find something that a family member lost, we return it, no questions asked. If a family member needs a loan and we're in a position to help, we happily lend without asking for anything in return. The Torah here commands us to view all Bnei Israel as our family in this regard, that when any Jew needs help, we are to lend assistance just as we would to our brother or sister. Just as we treat our family members with special kindness and compassion, so must we be ready to extend ourselves on behalf of any fellow Jew in need, because each and every one is achicha, our beloved brother or sister. Towards the end of the Shemona Esrei prayer, the Amidah, in the bracha Barachenu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echad, bless us our Father together as one, we ask Sim Shalom, give peace to all of us as one. This implies that when we see ourselves as one family, then we are worthy of receiving Hashem's blessings. Nothing makes parents happier than seeing their children loving one another, respecting one another, and caring for one another. When we, Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, transcend our differences and come together as a family, treating one another compassionately as achicha, loving brothers and sisters, we bring our Father, Hashem, immense joy and satisfaction, and are deserving of his abundant blessings. Also, regarding loans, if the borrower cannot repay and it is necessary to take collateral, the laws that govern such action greatly limit one's otherwise legitimate rights. One is prohibited from taking collateral that would impinge upon the borrower's livelihood. If an article of clothing is taken, it must be returned at a time that the borrower has to wear it. Even though the lender is legally entitled to receive his payment, all efforts are made to insist that the lender view the borrower through the prism of compassion and mercy. As the ultimate act of compassion concerning loans, the Torah teaches us in Parsha Themes that at the end of the Shemitah year the entire loan is cancelled. Furthermore, the entire institution of matnos aniyim, gifts to the poor, is predicated on the traits of kindness and compassion for our brethren. At the end of the parasha, the Torah instructs us concerning the special gifts that are given from our fields and vineyards. We must leave a corner of what we harvest and significant parts of our crops for the poor to take. These mitzvahs and the mitzvahs of tzedakah, charity, are expressions of our love for others above and beyond what actual justice would have required. Theoretically, what we harvest should be ours completely to keep. Yet, by sharing with others, we become compassionate, and in turn we merit the compassion of Hashem. As we approach the days of judgment, we realize, like the angels on high, that we cannot be victorious in a world dictated by divine justice alone. We call out to Hashem to view us through the eyes of kindness, love, and compassion. Our most effective way of meriting this divine love is by treating others, and especially our brethren, in the same way. Now, our sworn enemy Amalek and his attempt to break our spirit. Parsha Ki Teitzei concludes with a command to always remember Amalek's unprovoked, vicious attack on our ancestors shortly after leaving Egypt. The Torah describes how Amalek targeted specifically Nechasholim Acharecha, those who were straggling behind. Rashi explains that this refers to the sinners among the nation who were expelled by the supernatural cloud that had encircled Bnei Israel in the wilderness to provide protection. These sinners were thus left exposed and unshielded, and they came under attack by Amalek. But what did Amalek hope to accomplish by targeting these stragglers who found themselves outside the protective cloud? Did Amalek think they would be able to defeat Bnei Israel this way? They certainly realized that we were under God's protection, which is precisely why they attacked only these stragglers. So what was their goal? Amalek came not to win, but to terrorize, similar to the strategy used by terrorists in modern times, Yamach Shmam. The depraved individuals who commit these atrocities do not for a moment think they can defeat the countries of the Western world. Rather, their intention is to demoralize them and break their spirit. Earlier in this verse, the Torah describes Amalek's attack with the word karcha. Rashi interprets this word as rooted in the word kar, cold. After God's miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim, splitting the sea and drowning the Egyptians within it, the fear of Am Yisrael fell upon all the nations. Bnei Yisrael were comparable to a pool of boiling hot water into which nobody dared enter. But Amalek jumped in and thereby cooled down the awe in which Am Yisrael were held by the nations of the world, despite scalding themselves in the process. Bnei Yisrael had lost their aura of invulnerability. This was their objective, to break the mystique, to shatter Bnei Yisrael's aura of greatness and exaltedness and invincibility. Israel's enemies today have the same objective. They are fully aware of Israel's superior military capabilities and realize they cannot win on the battlefield, so instead they seek to break Israel's spirit and to destroy its reputation on the world stage. Their strategy is to inflict as much pain and cause as much destruction as possible, to demoralize Israel and thereby draw a response which will invariably invite international condemnation and censure. This is how they seek to cool the Jewish nation, to frighten us, discourage us, besmirch us, and cause us to lose our hope, our confidence, and our determination. But as much as they try to break our spirit, we commit to keeping our spirit strong, to continue building, growing, and prospering, and being the special nation that we are meant to be. Now, Amalek's attempt to sabotage our vision and purpose. The Torah emphasizes that Amalek attacked Bnei Yisrael on the road as they were traveling, asher karcha b'derech, that he happened upon you or called you down on the way. But derech in this verse alludes to the awareness of life's transience, that our lives are but a road to the next world. Amalek's strategy is to karcha, cool this awareness, to make us think that life here is permanent and that we should therefore expend all our time and energy on mundane worldly pursuits. We must never allow our sense of purpose to be cooled. We must remember that life is impermanent and shorter than we would like to think, and so there is no sense wasting time on vanities. We should invest our time and effort instead on what really matters, on Torah and mitzvahs which last forever and remain with us for eternity. Now Amalek attempts to defy and destroy Israel's vision. The verse says, Rom al kol goyim, high above all nations. That's in Tehillim, in the Book of Praises. The gematria of Rom equals 240, which is the same as that of Amalek. According to the worldview of Amalek and other non-believers, God's presence is limited to the heavens only, whereas Am Yisrael focuses on the subsequent verses. Hamashpili liros b'shamayim u'va'aretz. He deigns to look upon the heaven and the earth, and mukimi mafradal meshpos ar yorim evyon. He raises the needy from the dust, from the rubbish heaps he lifts the destitute. Thus, a defining characteristic of Amalek is their refusal to recognize Hashem's continual presence in the physical world, his influence upon it, and interaction with it and with us. We are commanded, Timcha es zecher Amalek mitachas hashamayim, which can be read to mean, erase the idea promulgated by Amalek that Hashem is only b'shamayim, in the heavens. Now, true gender equality. Lo yakli gever al isha, velo yilbash gever simlas isha. A man's attire must not be worn by a woman. A man must not wear a woman's garment. This directive implies that men should strive to actualize all their God-given potential as men, and women should strive to actualize all their God-given potential as women, in accordance with the Torah's guidelines for self-refinement. Although we all comprise male and female qualities, our biological gender clearly indicates which qualities we are meant to chiefly manifest. Manifesting our God-given potential free of any societal pressure to be something we are not, is true equal rights. When a woman mistakenly thinks that she must behave like a man and pursue a man's path, she implicitly affirms that women are intrinsically inferior to men. In order to cultivate a sense of self-worth, she must therefore compete with men. The Torah forbids such an affront to the status of women. Instead, it celebrates and values women's femininity, encouraging them to develop their innate female qualities. In this way, women can make their unique and crucial contributions to society, bringing the world to its ultimate divine fulfillment. Now, shiluach haken, which is sending away the mother bird. Maimonides the Rambam writes that the reason for these mitzvahs, to send away the mother bird before taking the eggs, or the chicks, is so that one should not kill the child in sight of the mother, for the animal has great pain from this. There is no difference between the concern of a person and the concern of an animal for their children, because a mother's love and compassion for the fruit of her womb is not a function of the intellect or speech, but a function of the thought process that exists in animals as in people. Now, the risks to our spiritual as opposed to our physical welfare. An Ammonite or a Moabite, even to their 10th generation, shall not enter into the congregation of Hashem. From here we learn that someone who causes a person to sin does worse to him than one who kills him. For one who kills him only in this world, whereas one who leads him to sin removes him from both this world and the world to come. Therefore Edom, who came forth against us with a sword, was not completely despised, nor was Egypt, who drowned our babies in the Nile. The Moabites and the Ammonites, however, who caused us to sin with the daughters of Midian and thereby damaged us spiritually, were completely despised by Hashem. Now, to hate or not to hate. The verse says, do not hate an Edomite because he is your brother. Do not hate an Egyptian because you are a stranger in his land. But the fact is, the Egyptians of Moshe's day had enslaved the Israelites and embittered their lives, subjected them to a ruthless regime of hard labor, and forced them to eat the bread of affliction, or matzah. They had embarked on a program of attempted genocide, Pharaoh commanding his people to throw every male Israelite child born into the river. Now, 40 years later, Moshe speaks as if none of this had happened, as if the Israelites owed the Egyptians a debt of gratitude for their hospitality even. Yet he and the people were where they were only because they were escaping from Egyptian persecution, nor did he want the people to forget it. To the contrary, he told them to recite the story of the Exodus every year, as we still do on Passover to this day, reenacting it with bitter herbs and unleavened bread, so that the memory would be passed on to all future generations. If you want to preserve freedom, he implies, never forget what it feels like to lose it. Yet here, on the banks of the Jordan, addressing the next generation, he tells the people, do not hate an Egyptian. So what is going on in this verse? And the answer is, to be free, you have to let go of hate. That's what Moshe is saying. If they continued to hate their erstwhile enemies, Moshe would have taken the Israelites out of Egypt, but he would not have taken Egypt out of the Israelites. Mentally, they would still be there, slaves to the past. They would still be in chains, not of metal, but of the mind. And chains of the mind are the most constricting of all. You cannot create a free society on the basis of hate. Resentment, rage, humiliation, a sense of injustice, the desire to restore honor by inflicting injury on your former persecutors, these are conditions of a profound lack of freedom. You must live with the past, implies Moshe, but not in the past. Those who are held captive by anger against their former persecutors are captive still. Those who let their enemies define who they are have not yet achieved liberty. The Torah refers time and again to the Exodus and the imperative of memory. You shall remember that you were slaves in Egypt. Yet never is this invoked as a reason for hatred, retaliation, or revenge. Always it appears as part of the logic of the just and compassionate society the Israelites are commanded to create, the alternative order, the antithesis of Egypt. The implicit message is, limit slavery, at least as far as your own people is concerned. Don't subject them to hard labor. Give them rest and freedom every seventh day. Release them every seventh year if they are slaves. Recognize them as being like you, not intrinsically inferior. No one is born to be a slave. Give generously to the poor. Let them eat from the leftovers of the harvest. Leave them a corner of the field. Share your blessings with others. Don't deprive people of their livelihood. The entire structure of biblical law is rooted in the experience of slavery in Egypt, as if to say, you know in your heart what it feels like to be the victim of persecution, therefore do not persecute others. Biblical ethics is based on repeated acts of role reversal, using memory as a moral force. In the books of Shmos and Devarim, we are commanded to use memory not to preserve hate, but to conquer it by recalling what it feels like to be its victim. Remember, not to live in the past, but to prevent a repetition of the past. Do not hate an Egyptian because you were strangers in his land, said Moshe, meaning, to be free, you have to let go of hate. And that's the end of Parsha's Ki Teitzei. Next week we will have a go at Parsha's Ki Sobo, and I hope you will be able to join us then. Until then, have a good week and shalom.